sorry, but you got maybe 3 months left to live. Suddenly your priorities in the dunya change completely. Everything is gone. 2 hungry wolves let loose among a flock of sheep will not cause more damage than chasing after money and status will do to your religion. Having a rich person who is dreaming of being righteous, beautiful. Can you really have a righteous person dreaming of being rich? The house you have in Jannah is going to be your really forever home. Why are we not investing in that house? Now, Faisal, you've hit the nail on the head. This is the big shubha now, the big misconception. We've got kids going to really good Muslim schools. Curriculum's great. The teachers are even good. But what do you do with the rest of the kids in the class? Like, if it's not getting me nearer to Allah, I don't want it.
What was it that was paining you though?
So what really was hurting me is seeing people who I believe are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala getting sucked into this. I'm maybe not the most connected person in terms of what's going on in the world, but you try to sort of keep your ear to the ground a little bit and just see what people are going through. And something that I just saw recently is coming up again and again and again is this issue of...
Assalamu alaikum. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, I have a very small request. If you can just double check that you're subscribed to us on YouTube, and if you're not, just hit that subscribe button. It's a 1 second task, but it makes a massive difference to us. Jazakallahu khair. This episode today is with Shaykh Muhammad Tim Humble. Shaykh Muhammad Tim Humble is an educator at AMAU Academy, Al-Madrasatul Umariyah. I think I said that right. And they very kindly have given a discount code to our listeners at Freshly Grounded if you're interested in learning the religion of Islam, which is our religion. So, maybe it's a good idea. You can do so, you can get this discount code by using code FG20, that's FG20 at amauacademy.com. And with that being said, enjoy the episode. But before you enjoy the episode, hey, how about become a patron of Freshly Grounded? So I'm doing promos anyway, so might as well just stick it in. Guess what? At Freshly Grounded, we give you an extra episode of the podcast every single week. It's called FG Insiders. It's a podcast with the guys in the office, and we have a good old chinwag and natter. It's me, it's Kaya, it's Suleiman, it's Ibrahim, it's Kareem, and to be honest, anyone else who's strolling through the office that day. We deliver a episode every single week. It's a normal Freshly Grounded podcast, old school, OG, and I'm sure you guys will love it. So check it out, and you can head over to patreon.com/Freshly Grounded to watch that. Now you can finally enjoy the episode. Go on. Go.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Shaykh Muhammad Tim.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's lovely to have you on for what I think is your 9th time on Freshly Grounded.
9th time,
yes.
Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. Jazakallahu khairan for having me on 9 times. That's sabr by itself.
No, it's a complete honor of ours all the time. Whenever we have you on the podcast, I like to try and focus it around a topic. And we've done a few different topics. We've spoken at length about shayateen, the tricks of the shaitan, and things like that. We've also done marriage, and we've spoken about raising kids, parenting, and then around COVID time, we kind of focused a little bit more on the health side of things as well. So I was thinking about a topic for this week, and I was torn between going back into kind of like the marriage, couple, family side of things, because I think that's always... everybody could always do with a reminder about how to like best run your family and things like this. But then I thought to myself, perhaps there's a topic that's larger than that, but and something that affects every single person. Because even still, marriage will only affect potentially people who are of a certain age or actually currently married and things like this, or raising a family. And so the topic of money kind of came up, and I want to delve into that a little bit. So, but maybe like expand out a little bit more. Money is something that affects all of us, whether we like it or not. We need it to survive. So money, rizq, but also, the dunya, zuhd, and these kind of topics. So I don't know if you had any kind of initial thoughts on this, but I think I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about how our relationship should be with money and with the dunya, and definitely kind of go a little bit into this topic of zuhd a bit as well.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful topic. I think it's very much needed. As part of my job, one of the things that I find myself doing a lot is counseling, advising people. People come to ask for advice, and you try to keep. I'm maybe not the most connected person in terms of what's going on in the world, but you try to sort of keep your ear to the ground a little bit and just see what people are going through. And something that I just saw recently is coming up again and again and again is this issue of chasing the world. And there's something really beautiful about Islam, and maybe this is just a thought for everyone just to think about. The difference between having the dunya and chasing the dunya. I think that is something really, really profound in Islam. What is the difference between having the dunya and chasing it? Because having the dunya, yani what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you from rizq, Allah is ar-razzaq, the one who provides. He provides you with not just money, He provides you with your iman, He provides you with your ability to live, He provides you with your body, your health. Everything is from the rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us with this money. And I really like the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it in the Quran. وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا. Allah says, don't give the foolish people, meaning people who they're not capable of managing their money well, and the people who they're not able to, spend it wisely. Don't give them the money that Allah has made it a means of your sustenance, a qiyam for you. And ultimately, that's how, after the grace of Allah, there's a roof over your head, right? And that's how, after the grace of Allah, you have the food on your table and so on. It's something which is very valuable, but very, very, very dangerous at the same time. And I just was thinking about the difference in all of the ayat, all of the hadith, the statements of scholars, and what is the difference between having money and chasing money? So think about one hadith. I don't know how many people have heard this hadith. It's a very beautiful hadith, the hadith of Ka'b ibn Malik, that he narrated. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا ذِئْبَانِ جَائِعَانِ أُرْسِلَ فِي غَنَمٍ بِأَفْسَدَ لَهَا مِنْ حِرْصِ الْمَرْءِ عَلَى الْمَالِ وَالشَّرَفِ لِدِينِهِ أو كما قال. He said, two hungry wolves. This is a proper hadith that paints a picture. Two hungry wolves let loose among a flock of sheep will not cause more damage than loving money, or not loving, let's say hirs, chasing after money and status will do to your religion. And imagine that your religion will be harmed more by having this desire and this hirs and this love of just, I want this dunya and I want to have money, I want to have status, I want to have a position. That will do more harm to your religion than setting two hungry wolves among a flock of sheep. And that is something, when you think about it, you realize what's the word here? The issue is the hirs. Because Allah gives the dunya. I mean, look, there were wealthy Sahaba, right? Radiallahu ta'ala anhum, Uthman ibn Affan, radiallahu anhu, is an example. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very clear that when He gives you the dunya, it's neither a proof that He loves you or He doesn't. كُلًّا نُمِدُّ هَؤُلَاءِ وَهَؤُلَاءِ مِنْ عَطَاءِ رَبِّكَ. And we give these people, and the righteous people, and we give these people, the people who are not righteous, both of them, we give them from the dunya. And it's not, Allah doesn't, it doesn't prove that He loves you, and it doesn't prove that He doesn't. So why is there a difference? The difference is all to do with this issue of chasing and wanting and craving. And I just saw so many people harmed by this. And the strangest thing is, so many of those people who are craving and chasing actually don't get what they're chasing or craving for. It reminds me of a statement. There's a poet, he said, I would actually write this on. I'm not one for writing quotes on the wall, but if I was to write quotes on the wall, this would definitely be one of my quotes on the wall. He said, إِذَا تَمَنَّيْتُ بِئْتُ اللَّيْلَ مُغْتَبِطًا إِنَّ الْمُنَى رَأْسُ أَمْوَالِ الْمَفَالِيسِ. He said, when I lie awake dreaming, I spend the night in contentment. He said, dreaming is the currency of the bankrupt, or dreaming is the capital of the bankrupt. And you don't have anything, but you lay at night, you close your eyes, you just imagine yourself with this car, this life, this house, and you sleep happy. But you wake up in the morning in the same bed that you were in before, because that's the difference. I mean, that's the person who's chasing something, and it's just, they're chasing a dream that doesn't exist.
Why is this pertinent now? Because you said at the beginning, that you've got your ear to the ground and you feel like this is an important discussion to have? Why do you feel that?
I saw so many people, especially, people who are good people, righteous people, but bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, wala nuzakki ala Allahi ahada. We don't say someone is righteous without knowledge, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the reality. But somebody who appears to be someone who is really loves their deen and is really connected to it. And just seeing them day after day, maybe you see missing from the classes. No, what's the matter? And you see this person has fallen into this trap of dreaming about the dunya. And this idea that I'm going to give my time to chasing something here. And when I say chasing, what I mean by dreaming and chasing is there's a difference between doing something and dreaming about something. So that's another difference that we can talk about today. So someone who says, I get up every morning, go to work, and I work hard, mashallah, it's beautiful. Like somebody says, I get up every morning, I go to work, I work hard, I come back, I do my best for my religion. Mashallah, that's beautiful. Like in someone who says, has distanced themselves from Allah because of a dream of this world. And, social media doesn't help in that. You've got, people presenting a lifestyle that really doesn't exist. It really doesn't. And this got me thinking, it's a really sort of reflective I got in a really sort of pensive and mode, and I started thinking about wealthy people, rich people. And I started thinking about many, many, many very, very wealthy people that I know and the differences between them. And the first thing that you can honestly say, wallahu alam, the first thing you can truly and honestly say is that there's an illusion of something. There's an illusion of happiness that comes with this idea that if I get a large amount of wealth, I'm going to be super happy. And I think that's something that a lot of Muslims kind of realize. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us clearly, فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Don't be fooled by the life of this world.
I read a quote that said, everybody knows that money is not the root of all happiness, but everybody wants to find out for themselves.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. And so that's like presenting a life. And then you've got people who you really admire. Why do you admire them? You admire them because of the fact that Allah's opened them a door for khair with what they have. And a true door of khair. Allah has given them, and they are someone that you're allowed to be jealous of. The hadith, La hasada illa ala ithnain. There's no jealousy except for two people. The one is the person who's been given wealth and he spends it all day and all night, and he's sadaqat. And one is the person who's been given knowledge, and that person, not only do they act upon that knowledge, but they share that knowledge with others, they spread it, they practice it. So I think that the idea of somebody, Allah has given them a blessing and they're not craving it. They've been given this blessing and they're using it for good. That's a beautiful thing. And that's like having a rich person who is dreaming of being righteous. Allahumma barik, that is beautiful. And you've got a person who is trying to find khair in what Allah has given them. Can you really have a righteous person dreaming of being rich based on that hadith, the hadith of the two hungry wolves? Can you really have somebody who is a person who is in the deen and they haven't maybe been given as much of the dunya as they would like, and they're craving and dreaming every night, not of how they can get closer to Allah, but how they can get a certain type of car or a certain type of lifestyle? And then this starts getting pushed by some students of knowledge as well. People, maybe, for example, Allah blesses them with some khair, and then they try to present to people that you can have both, or you can crave both. But reality is you really can't. So for me, I think it's a beautiful thing for someone to have wealth and the dunya that Allah has given them, and even better if it's through their hard work. And that person is striving to do something good with it and come close to Allah. But I really struggle to see someone who hasn't been given it, and that person is not only distancing themselves from Allah to a certain extent, but also now dreaming of something that's not even theirs, like dreaming of having something, craving it, and maybe not even necessarily working for it either. A lot of the time, not even necessarily no hard work involved, just a lot of this idea of lying on the bed and dreaming of things, and it hurts your religion a lot.
I like that a lot. It's quite profound. You can have a wealthy man who dreams of being righteous, but you can't really have a righteous man dreaming of being wealthy. What about the argument that being wealthy will help you continue your seeking of knowledge, or become more righteous? Because wealth and money is a big pain point for a lot of us. And so so if we can just like fix that, or if we say, let me just like focus on that for like the next X amount of years, so then I can like spend my time in the masjid. What about that argument? Do you think that's all kind of shaitan kind of telling you stories that aren't true or something?
So this is where we get to it. Now Faisal, you've hit the nail on the head. This is a shubhatul uzma, and this is the big shubha now, like the big misconception. And the reason I use that word shubha is, I really like that word. It's one of my favorite words. I like the way that the word, what it means is something that has a resemblance, a grain of truth, but isn't actually true. So it has a grain of truth, and the grain of truth is obvious, that no doubt having financial freedom or financial resources is a great facilitator of anything you want to do in this world. Anything, like whether it's travel, whether it's seeking knowledge, whether it's, staying in your house and never leaving again. Like, having money is a great facilitator of what you want to do in this world. That is absolutely true. But where it becomes problematic is in a number of different areas. So the first thing is, if I want to seek knowledge, and I believe this money is a facilitator of that, then I'm aiming to get that money in certain ways. Number one, it has to be halal, because I still want the barakah of seeking knowledge. It has to be the amount that I need, right? Like, I don't need to be dreaming of driving a Lamborghini, because driving a Lamborghini is the most useless thing for seeking knowledge that I can think of, since I can only fit, I guess, two people. I'm guessing two people in it. You can tell I've never been in a Lamborghini before.
No, you can two people. Yeah.
You can fit two people in it. Yeah, and it can't go over any of these desert tracks to get to the scholars in the far distance. And I presume you can't fit very many books in the boot.
No, you can't.
So, and for me, dreaming of that doesn't line up with what I'm saying. So my mouth is saying I want to get the financial resources to be able to seek knowledge. But the reality of what I'm doing is something which is far, far beyond that, or actually on a different track. So that's one problem. The other problem you have is what this idea of craving actually does to your deen. Go back to that hadith. It's more dangerous to you. That feeling is more harmful to you. That desire, that keenness is more harmful to you than two hungry wolves set among a flock of sheep. So now the question is, how can I do that without having that craving? It's literally to look down upon it. It's not to build it up, right? Not to say that, oh, you should be like this and you should have this, but actually to put it down. Look at the way that the dunya is belittled in the Quran. Even though sadaqat is such a beautiful door to goodness, and Allah mentions it so many times, but the dunya, you can't find a praiseworthy ayah about it from Surah Al-Fatiha until Surah Al-Nas. And the hadith is the same. Why? You were told that the dunya is not even worth the wing of a mosquito. Ad-dunya mal'oonatun mal'oonun ma fiha. The world is cursed and everything in it is cursed. And we're told these, فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Don't be deceived by the life of this world, and all of those things. In order to benefit from it, you have to step away from it and look down upon it. To you, it has to be, and some of the scholars mentioned this, akramakumullah, it has to be like using the bathroom. It's just what I have to do to survive. And that changes your feeling completely. You could now become extremely wealthy, but it wouldn't, inshallah ta'ala, hurt you, because the hirs isn't there. This craving isn't there. It's like, look, this world, it's like, I have to do it because I have to do it. And rewarding hard work rather than wishful thinking. And those two, the difference, for example, a lot of people ask, Islam puts a very high emphasis on high aspirations, dreaming big. But why is there so much criticism of wishful thinking? So what's the difference between wishful thinking and big dreams? The difference between them is hard work, right? One, you have a big goal and you work really, really hard towards it. And the other one is you have a big goal and you dream about it, but you don't really do anything for it. So all these things come together. And I think this idea of not knowing when you're going to die, that's another thing that just breaks this shubha apart, is this idea that I'm going to spend 10 years, and especially when it comes to your own business. And I think you know exactly, you know a lot of entrepreneurs. Reality is your own business is not necessarily a good way of achieving freedom, financial freedom, necessarily. You work very, very, very hard, very long hours. You have a lot of dedication to it, and you, inshallah ta'ala, reach somewhere within an amount of time. But that process itself is also quite addictive. I mean, all the entrepreneurs I know that are entrepreneurs, that I would use that word rather than just happen to own a business, they're very much addicted to that idea of driving it and growing it and pushing it. And that might be, you have to ask yourself, like, what is that going to do to a person who wants to dedicate their life to the Quran and the Sunnah? And there's nothing wrong with, nothing haram in it, but what is that going to do to what are they going to stand in front of Allah with Yawm al-Qiyamah? Is it 60 years of dedication to driving this business forward and growing this business and doing a great job? And inshallah, there's some sadaqat along with them. Beautiful. Or is it going to be 60 years of reading and memorizing the Quran and the hadith and teaching the people? And that's a person's choice, what they want to come in front of Allah with. But it's sad to see someone who tells themselves, my choice is the second one, when in reality, and they're not even going to get the first one because they're not even working hard enough to drive their business forward. It's just a bunch of ideas that come up, and then there's no staying power. And there's something that I really admire about entrepreneurs. And if you look at what makes a successful entrepreneur, there's a lot of qualities that actually make a successful student of knowledge. And one of them is athabat, this idea of just sticking to something and having determination and regularity and just not moving, just being very, very dedicated to something.
Almost obsessive.
Yeah, almost obsessive. But just being careful about obsession over the dunya. And so this is the thing, a lot of times people will say about sadaqah, students of knowledge, maybe not so much. Like, and you'll see people say, well, the reason I'm working so hard is because I want to give sadaqat. And that's beautiful. At least there's a good intention there to please Allah. That's rewarded in the sight of Allah, inshallah. There's two things to think about. The first thing is, if you haven't reached there yet, you really don't know whether you'll ever get there. Do you know what I mean? You don't know whether you'll get to that level of financial success. And if you do get there, you don't know whether Allah will bless you with the iman and the love of Allah to be able to give all that sadaqat that you dreamed of. Then you remember that sadaqat is not just about money. Sadaqat, there's a lot of ways you can give sadaqah. Every time you say Subhanallah is a sadaqah, and Alhamdulillah is a sadaqah, La ilaha illallah is a sadaqah, and the food that you put in your wife's mouth is a sadaqah. So there's a lot of the smile that you smile at your brother is a sadaqah. And also you come to the hadith where a single coin outweighs thousands and thousands, that a person can give a single coin that outweighs, for example, 100,000 coins, a single silver coin that outweighs 100,000 coins. How can it be? How could a person give, let's say, $1 that outweighs $100,000? Because if I think about this hadith carefully, then this could be a game changer for me in my claim that the reason I'm dedicating 60 years to this business or job is because I want to give sadaqat. Like, what do we do with the hadith that a single coin can outweigh, for example, any thousands, 100,000 coins? Why? Because the person who had 2 coins, he had $2. That's all he had in his life. And he took $1 and gave it for sadaqah. And the other person had a huge amount of money, millions and millions, and he gave from it $100,000. Which one is worth more in the sight of Allah? So those things change your mind about the ideas. So I definitely don't want to make something haram. I don't want to make this idea of entrepreneurship or this idea of working hard or having a good career and saying that this is this is something permissible and something even rewardable if it's done with the right intention. But it's the deception of someone starting off in the beginning, looking at their life, especially young brothers and sisters looking at their life going forward, and allowing shaitan to deceive them about what they really want and what's really in their heart and what their goal really is. So I don't know, did that?
Yeah, it's helpful. I wonder, do you think that sometimes we lean on the fact that because something is halal, that it's now the floodgates are open? We can do what we want because it's technically, if you look at the individual element of owning a Lamborghini, if you take out, intentions or whatever, the act of owning a Lamborghini can be halal, right?
Absolutely.
And so do you think that sometimes we lean on black and white, halal, haram, and then say, because dunya is not haram, therefore, and then we just go for it. By the way, I'm speaking as someone, I'm not trying to speak on my high horse, because what you're saying is benefiting me so much, because, we all have these kind of thoughts and daydreams, right? That's the question. Do you think we lean on the fact that it's not necessarily haram and then we just kind of go for it?
Yeah, so let me give you a different way of thinking about it. When we talked about the word zuhd in the beginning. So zuhd is a very misunderstood word.
Okay.
So why it's misunderstood is people hear this word zuhd, abstaining from the dunya, and they get this idea of this kind of old man in torn, woolen clothes who sleeps on a bed of nails or something like that. People get this idea, and that's not at all what zuhd is. In reality, zuhd is 3 levels. The first level is a zuhd fil haram. A person says, I want to abstain from the haram. And that is the best that a person can start with. He says, look, you know what it is? This world, I'm going to enjoy myself. I like having a good time, but I promise to myself that my intention is that I will keep away from the haram. And that is a beautiful thing. And that's the first person who can be called zahid, someone who's abstained from the dunya, because he says, look, all this dunya is here. All of this stuff is here in terms of money, in terms of relationships and whatever. It's all in front of me, but I'm only going to select what is halal. The second level is someone who goes above that person and still doesn't wear woolen clothes and sleep on a bed of nails. And that is a person who says that I'm not just going to abstain from the haram. I'm going to abstain from something that I'm doubtful about. So if I have a doubt about it, I'm going to stay away from that. We call this person al-wari', and he's someone who is cautious in their religion. This person says, I'm scared it might be haram, so I'm going to stay. And the difference is, you see in fatwa, right? Someone says, well, there's a fatwa for it, right? Someone said it's permissible. Mm-hmm. And the other person says, well, I'm scared. And what if it isn't allowed? What if the fatwa I've been given is wrong? What if the sheikh didn't understand the situation? What if there's a different... So the person is erring on the side of caution. And that's an even higher level of zuhd. But the highest level of all, and the one that people should think about, it's very hard to attain, is tarku ma la yanfa' fil akhirah. A person says, I'm going to leave every single thing that doesn't get me closer to Allah in the akhirah. Now, I'm saying, if it's not getting me nearer to Allah, I don't want it. Now, a person says, well, what does that do to you with regard to jobs? With regard to businesses? So what I see is, I don't see leaving your job, because reality is you've got obligations. You've got, your obligations towards your family, towards your kids. You've got obligations towards yourself. You've got zakah that you want to pay and things like that. But it does make you think about what kind of job you want. It makes you think that, is this job that I have in it, is it actually the best job I could have to get near to Allah in the akhirah? Or could I restructure myself to get more time? And we come back to, I think we spoke about this in one of the first Freshly Grounded episodes I ever did with you. I'm pretty sure second maybe. We spoke about this issue of time. The fact that the most valuable commodity you actually have is your time.
Yeah, it was the first episode.
I remember
at the time you were reading a book on how to say no.
Yeah, I think, I'm still reading it.
It's like a lifelong lesson.
Yeah, it is. And I just think that if a person thinks like that, if my most valuable commodity is time rather than money, so now the type of job I choose, the type of work I have, the amount of time I spend dreaming about things, whether I launch 3 new companies or ideas or I just launch one on a smaller scale, because for me now, what I'm looking at is it actually the most beneficial thing I can do with my time in terms of getting close to Allah in the akhirah. Now, what's the real difference in this third level is the person really doesn't think anymore about halal and haram, not in the sense like they've got past that level.
Sure.
They're now thinking about, is it getting me near to Allah or not? Because I could use let's say if I pray my 5 daily prayers, I could use all the rest of that time for recreation. I could use all the rest of that time for business. I could use all the rest of that time for, sitting, dreaming about things. I could pretty much, if I'm doing my 5 daily prayers and I'm doing my basic, requirements in Islam, I could leave all the other stuff. But where would that put me Yawm al-Qiyamah versus a person who did X, Y, Z, who spent their time doing something else? And then suddenly the picture changes and a person starts to feel, well, maybe I should revisit some of my life goals, and maybe I should rework things and actually look at what's going to benefit me in the akhirah. And this all comes back to what it really means to believe in the akhirah. We all say we believe in Jannah, right? And we believe in the existence of Jahannam. But sometimes sometimes our behavior doesn't really reflect upon that belief very well. You believe you're going to be in Jannah forever, and that the house you have in Jannah is going to be your forever home, really forever home. And not like they say here, where you're going to get a house that you're not going to sell for 20 years, and that's supposed to be your forever home. This is your forever home. You're never getting an upgrade after that. What you have is that is it. Why are we not investing in that house? But we're investing in a number of houses here in this world. So for me, I personally love the ideas that people have in terms of someone saying, well, I want to do this because I can get more out of my time. I want to do this because I can make the most use of my money. So I really like the idea of earning as much money as possible in as smallest time as possible. I actually think that that's not a bad place to start. A person looks at a job and says, look, well, I don't really want to sort of waste my whole life in something, but I want to sort of maximize the halal income that I can get in terms of the time that I spend, so that I can use the rest of that time for Allah. But there's a few things you have to keep checking along the way. Obviously, you have to keep checking that you're doing it in a way that's halal, but you also have to keep checking that you're not being caught up in this whirlpool of the dunya and not starting to crave it and want more of it. And you have to check that you're actually using your free time for what is beneficial, because if your free time then just becomes lounging around and lazing around, and then it's no longer that intention you started with. So it comes back to this idea of constantly looking at your intention and looking at your actions realistically, taking yourself to account. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Let everyone look at what he put forward for tomorrow. It's something really beautiful, and I think not enough of us do this, is at the end of the day, or that whenever it suits you, the end of the day seems to make sense, but whatever suits a person, that you just sit down and ask yourself, what did I do for Allah today? And what did I do for my religion today? And don't say that in 10 years' time, I'm going to give a large amount of sadaqah, because you don't know you're going to live for 10 minutes, let alone 10 years. And you don't know that if you get there, you'll have the money. And you don't know that if you get there and you have the money, you'll give the sadaqah. So that's back to the idea of the capital of the bankrupt. You're just dreaming about the day when I'm going to give large amounts of sadaqah, they're going to take me to Jannah. But you actually say, what did I do today for Allah? If I had $2, did I give my $1 for sadaqah? I mean, that's a big difference. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people are lying to themselves when they say that they're trying to accumulate wealth now so that they can have more time for ibadah and they can be more righteous?
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous way of thinking. And it's very similar to a person who says that I'll go to Hajj in 5 years' time and then I'm going to be righteous. And that reminds you of the statement of the brothers of Yusuf. Because what they said when they talked about killing Yusuf, they said, if we kill Yusuf now, after that we're going to be righteous. Now, Taban, that's killing a person is from the haram. But the issue here is this idea that I'll do something now and tomorrow I'm going to be a righteous person. And that's a very, very, very dangerous way of thinking. Even the person saying that I'm going to, follow my religion to a basic extent today, and in 10 years' time, I'm going to be really good, or I'm going to be better than I am today. A person just doesn't have that guarantee. Neither that you'll live that long, nor that you'll reach what your goal is, nor that when you reach your goal, you'll actually do what you thought you would do. So rather than that, think about this issue of being the person who gave $1 out of 2 rather than the person who gave $100,000. And try to be that person who says, well, I don't have a lot today, but I have a little. I can give a little from what I have. I don't have a lot of time today. I'm working hard, but I can still push and use that time, that little free time that I have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you'll see that your way of thinking about the future changes a lot. And a person starts to think the only thing that you have, and it's a very famous statement, people quote it a lot, this idea of the past has gone and the future is not guaranteed. وَلَكَ السَّاعَةَ الَّتِي أَنْتَ فِيهَا. What you have is the time that you are in today. And that's all you have. And you don't have the past, that's it. You can make tawbah for it, but you don't have an ability to change the past. وَالْمُؤَمَّلُ غَيْبٌ. And the future is something that you don't have a guarantee that you're going to reach it. وَلَكَ السَّاعَةَ الَّتِي أَنْتَ فِيهَا. What you have is you have this moment that you're in now. That's what you have in the sight of Allah. So don't be somebody who stored their good deeds for something they don't know is ever going to come. And then I think that once you get into this craving, it leads to other things as well. It also leads into the issue of the haram. So once a person starts craving the dunya, especially if they don't get it for a time, and they see themselves after 5 years and they've been craving for this dunya so that in 10 years they can be righteous. And that person has got to 5 years down this 10-year plan and they haven't got to where they wanted to. So what do they start to do? Shaitan starts to say to them, look, you need to cut a few corners here. And the person starts to think about, all kinds of things that are at best gray areas. At worst, they fall into the haram. And again, this is something I've been very much aware lately. I'm seeing a lot of people doing. A lot of people looking for the easy way out. Maybe it doesn't start with the haram. Let's not say it starts with the haram. Let's say it starts with looking for the easy way out. So the person starts to look at work that is not necessarily particularly valuable, but they just looking for quick ways to make money. And that's another problem, right? So the person is like, and again, you can say like, does that not contradict with what you said about maximum income for minimum time? So that maximum income has to be permissible and beneficial. And where sometimes people then start to go wrong is it's just like, I even see, from some of the young kids telling me like, I've looked at this, I found the best thing, I'm going to do, I can work for a month and next month I'm going to make £100,000. So I'm like, you're going to make £100,000 in a month. What do you make now? I said, nothing. Okay, so how are you going to make £100,000 next month? Today you made nothing and you have absolutely zero experience. No, because I found on YouTube. And that's where it starts. Or I found on TikTok, whatever it is, that someone's told me and they're going to give me a client list. And this client list is worth, they told me it's worth $300,000 in the first week and it's worth like up to $1 million by the end of the year. And okay, so he's selling it for how much? $3,000. Okay, so you're going to pay this guy for a client list for $3,000 that you believe is going to make you in the first month or 2 months or whatever, $300,000. Why is he selling it to you for $3,000 then? Like, it's a bit of like, think about it. And then if he's selling it to you, he's also selling it to another, because obviously his model is to sell it to 1,000 people. So then the value of it at $300,000, even if we take that at face value, take the 1,000 off, and it's suddenly worth a lot less than you're paying for it. So again, it's like kind of like, get rich quick schemes, and I'm talking about good people.
So we're speaking right now about people who are kind of chasing the dunya. I want to shift conversation a little bit to students of knowledge, like people who are actually studying knowledge now, as opposed to people who are kind of saying, I'm going to make money so I can study knowledge. You obviously interact with a lot of young students. Have you seen any patterns recently where students are either like not taking jobs or they're like they're either not taking jobs or they're not interested in jobs? Even another thing that comes to my mind a question that I have is, when you're in the secular world, you kind of go to primary school, then you go to high school, and after high school you go to college. After college, you go to university. I know for me and for a lot of my peers, going to university was kind of just a thing where it's like, okay, well, we can almost extend not having responsibility for another 3 years.
Yeah.
And some people, not everyone, but some people will then say, okay, I'm going to get a master's because then then I can still not have to get a job. And then after a master's, I get PhD. And it's like they're in their mid-30s and they just studied all their lives. But potentially the grounding for that was actually because it's like the fear of going into big wide world and getting a job. Does that exist with students of knowledge from the Islamic element? Do people continue to study? I feel like weird asking it, almost like I feel like I'm like,
no, I totally get what you're saying.
But
I get what you're
so
saying.
that they don't have to.
So they have another problem on top of that. When you're at uni, you're doing your degree. You're doing a degree that it's completely permissible to monetize the output of. But what do you do when your degree, it's not permissible for you to monetize the output of it? And you're doing a degree that's for the sake of Allah. That is very, very hard now, because you're learning something that you're being told that what you've learned in the last 12 years, 15 years, you must not seek the dunya through it. So that's now a lot more complicated, because it's not just the feeling of let me continue my studies to delay going into the world, but it's actually being told that the knowledge you're studying is not knowledge that you can seek the worldly rizq from. So the biggest question I get from students of knowledge in that situation is, how do I make a living? What job do I get? And that's a big flaw in a lot of Islamic universities, despite the massive respect that I have for the Islamic universities and love, and wallahi, if it wasn't for Allah and then what the Islamic University of Medina did for me, wallahi, I would be in a completely different place, subhanAllah. But they don't do really anything, or very, very little, to prepare you for what you're actually going to do in the world. And that feeds into all this problem we've talked about, because some people will go down the route of, okay, let me just keep on piling on the studies, and I'll just so for example, someone says, I'm going to live off sadaqat, basically. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna hadhihi sadaqat awsakhun nas. This sadaqah is the dirt of the people. Think about it, that's an authentic hadith, close to that meaning or close to it, that the sadaqah is the dirt of the people. Meaning that the sadaqah, in terms of the one who gave it, it purified his wealth from the haram, right? Or her wealth from the haram. When you gave the zakah, it purified the wealth from the haram, right? But the person now who is wanting it, you're wanting what people got rid of from their wealth to clean it.
Wow.
So this is awsakh an-nas. And someone's literally, am I supposed to live upon this? And then when you do, what will also happen, not only is it not clean wealth for you, it's not good wealth for you. There was 2 young men came to the Prophet ﷺ and they asked from the zakah. 2 young, strong men. And they could have been poor. Why did the Prophet ﷺ discourage them from taking it? Very strongly discourage them from taking it. Because he saw that these are 2 young men who can go out and get a job. They could just, go lift firewood, go and collect sticks from the ground and put it in a bundle and sell it to people for a few coins. Is better for you than you to take from this sadaqah when you're capable of having a job. So now that some students are looking at this and thinking, well, I'm facing a future of living off the sadaqat. Or a person gets into a situation where they, then are forced to compromise in some of the things they say, the way they teach. The imam of the masjid, here is beautiful in terms of the issue of having a government-sponsored imam. It takes a lot of pressure off you because you're given from the awqaf, which is how it really should be. You should have a trust which people pay into, and the trust invests in whatever it might be, property, businesses, whatever, and the income from that trust pays, for example, so the person doesn't feel like there's pressure on them and restriction on them. But in the UK, for example, a lot of imams in the masjid is paid by the masjid. And in other words, the person who pays, who is putting the money in for your salary is the one that you report to. And it creates a lot of pressure for them, so they feel terrible about that. Then some other people say, well, maybe I should go down the other route. I just chase the dunya for a few years. And I'll spend I'll do this whole thing we talked about, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years of, you see these people who've got masters and all kinds of high level qualifications and memorization. And what are you doing? I'm, for example, working here and there. And that's also a problem. We don't want that. So the big problem is that the person's looking at a lot of options and none of them look really very good. My general advice to them is, look, let's work on developing a skill. The Prophet ﷺ praised the person who has a skill that they do with their hands. This is from the best that you can earn. And it doesn't have to be you're a carpenter. I mean, we can talk about a software developer. We can talk about, someone who has a skill that they develop. Don't let that skill take a massive amount of your time, but concentrate on doing it with ihsan. And inshaAllah ta'ala, you'll find from that skill a means of living, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, by Allah's permission, and be able to continue what you really came for, which is your seeking knowledge.
What you're saying is reminding me a lot about a person that I know who I really look up to. And he is he's graduated from one of the major universities, Islamic universities. He's Hafidh of Quran, he's a teacher, he's an imam. He has his own institute where he teaches Islam. Yet he does all of that whilst having a completely halal full-time job, and he's really high up in that full-time job. He's a managerial status. And I remember speaking to him when I first time I met him, and I was just so inspired by him. And he told me about his job history and kind of what he does as a career. And anybody who, even if they're someone who's not a student of knowledge, would look at his career and say Allah Barak, he's very successful. And he was talking to me about this, and he said, I've always had the mindset that I want to work for my money and have a separate job and then do this separately. So he even doesn't take from his institute, even though there's a staff in the institute, for example, that I paid. He even is an imam. He'll go, he's even able from his job to take out a gap, or because of his job is remote, he can even go and do a period of teaching a series or a book and still carry on his work. And I just think it's so admirable, that he does that basically.
It's beautiful. And if you look at it, when you've got to analyze people like that and say, all the stuff we've talked about now, you've got someone who's not craving the dunya. They're just taking what they need to fulfill their job in the akhirah.
Sorry, by the way, I just remembered something else. Is that because what you touched on earlier was the idea that if you're making money in order to potentially, or what you're saying is so that you can do ibadah later. Are you doing ibadah now? You actually, one of your famous sayings is from your talk in one of the masjid, I think in Dudley or something, years and years and years ago, over 10 years ago. You said this thing where it was a lecture you were giving about seeking knowledge, and you said, a lot of people come to me and say, I want to travel to seek knowledge. And I say to them, well, have you saw all of the knowledge in your current city, and then have you expanded out to the next city and then the rest of your country, and then have you studied abroad, right? And that kind of same principle, I suppose, applies to ibadah, right? Okay, you're saying you want to leave your job to do ibadah, but your evenings right now, where you have all your, between Fajr and the time you go to work, and you have 2 hours spare, are you doing ibadah? And that's something that I constantly feel conscious of. When I have spare time, I think to myself, am I using my spare time how I should be? Sometimes I even tell myself, I want to be able to fully just focus on Deen, but I'm well, I have definitely got gaps of my time trying to kind of improve that, right? This brother that I'm talking about, I've traveled with him, and the minute we sat on a plane until the minute we got off the plane, he was reading Quran. He had the mushaf out and he was reciting, and he was really making use of every moment where he's not having to physically do his day job. They flying him out, and he's using that time on the plane to do ibadah. And I was thinking to myself, this is someone who's really making use of that time. And I felt guilty seeing that,
Yeah, subhanAllah. That's really amazing, wallah. It really is. And very few people get the tawfiq to do that. And then, when you flip on the other side and you look at also there's all kinds of this issue. There's so many concerns and so many pitfalls people can fall into. The other thing is the person who has a really good job and stable income and everything, and then says, right, I'm gonna leave all of this. I'm gonna leave the world behind, and I'm gonna go and worship Allah. If that person isn't doing that ibadah during the time they were working, it's very, very going to be very hard for them to develop the habit of worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal now that they have this free time. And that's why you see so few people who have this dream of the future, doing X, Y, Z in the future, actually get to the point where they fulfill that dream. Because we know about the importance of building habits, right? And the fact that a lot of the religion of Islam comes down to having good habits that you practice regularly again and again and again. If you don't practice those habits, but you dream of having them in, 10 years' time or 5 years' time or 2 years' time, it's very, very hard. In fact, what the best possible outcome you hope for that person really is that the day they stop doing this dunya stuff, what they do is they slowly start building up those habits, and maybe another 10 years down the line, they finally get to the point they dreamed of. Whereas a person who's building these habits while they're at work, in their job, and they're looking for ways to make it efficient, remote working, they're looking for opportunities, and then they get to a stage where they can step away, inshallah, that person will step away and make maximum use of their time. And also, connected to that, you also made me think about something is, people then ask, well, what's the issue? What about if you work in the field of Islam? Like, how does that work? Like, if you work as a teacher, or you work as if you did take money from that institute, or whatever it might be. So the issue here is the person has to have the intention that that's not the reason they're there. It has to be for them that, I'm blessed to be able to take a salary as a teacher, but what I'm here for is being a teacher, not taking a salary. And if I, for example, let's just say I had the money from elsewhere. Let's just say I had it from inheritance, or I had it from a job that I did on the side, that I would leave that money that is connected to that Islamic field. But at the moment, it's just facilitating something for me. So that's, again, a very difficult intention to do. And the number of opportunities in it are very small. So the students of knowledge are also thinking, well, the number of opportunities I have to even do that are very small. So students of knowledge have it hard. They do. But again, I just come back to this idea of having a skill and working hard, even if it's limited amount of time, even if it's something very menial and basic, even if it's just something very simple that they do, but they do it well and they work hard on it, and they don't allow it to conflict with their seeking knowledge. And it's a beautiful thing to be. But what makes me sad then is we've got students of knowledge, and every other week there's something to do with, Akhi, I'm in a bad situation, this has happened, that has happened, and you feel like there's no plan for that person's, in terms of like their future or what they're doing. It's just like being sort of shaken around in the sea, hitting from rock to rock. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on students of knowledge, and it's not an easy thing to do. And that's perhaps why it's one of the means that Allah makes a path to Jannah easy for you.
Here's the dichotomy I have, Shaykh. You were speaking about the concept of just kind of like laying it all out there. There's a lot of people on social media right now who are promoting the idea of making more money online, digitally, making more money and spending less time. And you've already said that in itself is an admirable thing, right? Like the idea of like making money if you can spend less time on it. But there's obviously like a line that's very clear for you that's like, unreasonable and un-Islamic. And, you mentioned stuff like this, people were saying, about having a Lamborghini and all this kind of stuff. Okay, the dichotomy I have here that I want to kind of try and unravel.
I don't have any big objection to Lamborghini.
No, I know. Yeah, other cars are available. Yeah. So the dichotomy I have is that you're in a room now with like four of us guys who are in that era, from that era of understanding the value of making money online, making money digitally, and we've been able to experience it in some ways. So, a lot of the ways that I, or Freshly Grounded, has been able to monetize has been through, for example, we, 2-3 years ago, I taught a podcasting course, and we've been able to successfully run a podcast. Here's how to do it. We've packaged it. We've sold it as a digital course. Or we've done the same thing with like email newsletters I've done and stuff like that. So you're kind of talking to somebody who has also benefited from saying, hey guys, look, here's a digital course. And I've sold it and I've made money from that, and I've kind of taught the thing. So the dichotomy I have is, granted though, I haven't ever, taken a picture of myself in a Rolls Royce or something, or a Lambo or anything like that, and said like, I've got these things and things like this. But can you understand, I suppose, like where I'm alluding to here?
So I think here we need to go back to like what buying and selling is in Islam. There's nothing wrong with selling a digital product. I don't have any problem with it. In fact, it's something I've done in the past, and لو استقبلت من أمري ما استدبرت, if the chance came again, I would do it again. I think it's, as long as there's got to be certain things in here.
And in some ways, AMAU Academy is a digital product, right?
Yeah, AMAU Academy is a little different because AMAU is a purely not-for-profit organization. So it's ran as effectively as a true not-for-profit, in the sense that it's there to benefit the beneficiaries. But let's just talk about like something which is just a business, a digital product online. No problem at all. But one thing you have to make sure is that you're actually giving people a manfa, something that benefits. And it's no different to the marketplace. If I'm selling things in a traditional marketplace, am I selling things that are actually benefiting the people, or am I selling what we call pie in the sky, right? And digitally, it's very easy to get into selling pie in the sky, right?
Sure.
Very, very easy, because you're not. It's not a tangible product people can hold in their hands. And so my concern is more the people who are in the digital space, and really, it's almost like a Ponzi scheme. The idea is I'm just selling you something so I can make some money to fulfill my obligations. You will then later on sell something to someone else, which is also not really very particularly beneficial, but at least then you'll be able to make back the money that you paid to me for me to tell you how to make. That kind of thing is what scares me.
What if what I'm providing is actually valuable, but I know that by taking pictures and videos and marketing material in certain lavish situations is what's going to market this thing, because people are attracted to the dunya, and it's almost like showing like this is like the result of what you could have. That's when we start getting into the challenging part. And sure,
I don't want to say.
I want you to be open and honest.
So I don't want to say something is haram that isn't. I'm very careful about that. It's a very dangerous thing to do. I just tell people to think about it. Like, think about the way you market things, that you focus on the quality of what you're selling to people, and you focus on the benefit that it's going to give somebody. And you try not to give people a false impression.
Sure.
You try marketing. There's nothing wrong with making your product look really good. I like, and there's people market. That's how people market things. But I just think that the danger, especially in the online space, is that sometimes you're selling something that isn't. Often it's not something very tangible that you can measure. It's information. It's how to do something. Making sure that it's beneficial to people truly benefit from it, and making sure that it's marketed in a way that is reasonable. The person isn't getting gharar, they're not getting deceived. Because if, for example, they think that, let's say, for example, I bought a course on how to start a podcast, and I have got in my mind that by buying this course, in the first 1 month, I'm going to have the biggest podcast, on all of the top podcast apps, within 2 months. Realistically, I'm not. And I think giving people that impression is the problem.
Do you think it's also immoral because, you're basically using people's weakness to entice them into something that might not by default be haram, but it's not admirable? So, for example, if I'm saying, oh, look at this amazing watch that you could have, that's £1 million or whatever. I don't know anything about watches, by the way. You're enticing them, and that's, as humans, we know that dunya is our weakness and we're attracted to it. And so even if you think that what you're doing is calling me to something good because there's like benefit in, there's benefit in like not working for somebody so you can like study knowledge, you're using something that's attracting me but is a weakness and is like potentially can lead to other weaknesses and permissibility. Akin to me, let's say for example somebody's really struggling with weight gain and they want to lose weight and they have a real like weakness for, like me, I'll use me as an example. I have a real weakness for chocolate, not sweets, not necessarily I think, but chocolate, I love it, right? So let's say for example I'm really struggling with weight gain and someone's like showing me like this like beautiful chocolate cake. Of course that's my weakness, but it kind of feels immoral that you're like trying to entice me to do something good but showing me the thing that I'm really attracted to. So is there a level of like potential immorality in that whole thing?
There's certainly need for research. Again, I don't want to make something haram that isn't, but I think just people, I guess the message is really think about the fact that you're going to stand in front of Allah and think about the way that you promote things and market things and sell things, and whether you're really, all marketing is designed to appeal to people's desires, right? That's the way people market things. And that in itself isn't forbidden in Islam. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. Allah made buying and selling permissible. But we do have to be careful. We have to be careful about giving people a false impression. We have to be careful about something is harmful to people. For example, if you're targeting practicing Muslims with a product and the way that you're targeting is going to send a significant number of them astray, and that for me is a bit of a red line, especially when we talked about the hadith we started with, the two hungry wolves. When you get this person into al-hirs ala dunya, he's desperate for the world, he just dreams of nothing else. And you did that to sell a product that will benefit you personally, that will enrich you personally. How are you going to stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla and say that you knowing that you targeted a specific group of people and those people are going astray because of the way this product is being pushed, or that's a factor in it, and the overall benefit is coming back on you and the harm upon them? Yeah, the whole benefit of bay' is the whole idea of buying and selling in Islam is the idea of tabadul al-manafi', if that's the right term. Like everyone wins. That's why riba is haram, right? Riba is not everyone wins. Riba, the one person wins and one person loses badly, and the person who loses badly is being taken advantage of by the one who wins. Like, the idea of al-bay' is that, you got something that benefits me, I've got something that benefits you. Mine might be cash, yours might be a product. And, we might not always benefit equally, and we might not always be the same. And sometimes we might buy something and think, didn't quite work out for me. But generally speaking, I had something you wanted and you had something I wanted and we exchanged it. But the danger is when really that when you're taking that money, you're actually harming me badly, but you still want the money for yourself. That's where it becomes really, dangerous, if that makes sense.
On the topic of desire, I saw this quote from that somebody sent me from one of the scholars, and I can't remember which. I have in mind who I think it was, but I don't want to say it in case it wasn't him. But what the quote said is, this scholar, he said, I find that when I allow myself to have one desire, it makes me more open to other desires. And so what can start with a halal desire, for example, you desire some food, completely halal, you allow yourself that desire, all of a sudden, he ended it by saying that the quote said that you find it easier to sin. So when you start accepting those desires, what do you think of that?
So definitely an excess, for sure. Excess halal leads to the haram, no doubt. Like it's more the excess. Like, for example, a person, excess. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions some things regarding this. The issue of excess food, excess sleep, even excess intimacy, excess in spending, in buying the halal. All of these types of things in excess actually lead to the haram.
So there's actually Ibn Qayyim, you mentioned him, there's actually Ibn Qayyim quote that says, when the soul is given what it desires, it becomes greedy for more. When it is restrained, it becomes content.
So again, the desires here, you have to distinguish between the desires which are permissible and impermissible.
Sure.
But constantly giving into your desires. That's why one of the great benefits of fasting, which people maybe miss. I mean, people always talk about thinking about people who are less fortunate. But one of the great mahasin of fasting, the benefits of fasting, is actually learning to control permissible desires. Like learning to put a limit on the things that are halal for yourself. Because that, even he mentions talking is the other one he mentions, is that excess of talking. All of these things which are permissible, when they become too much, they automatically push you towards that which is haram. So being able to limit yourself in those permissible things is where you, because if you limit yourself in what's permissible and restrict yourself, and then you have a moment where you go a little bit over, you go over into what is permissible. But if you allow yourself to push the boundaries of what's permissible and constantly feed your soul with what it craves all the time, and then you go over the boundary, you go into what is haram. So it's really important that a person controls the permissible things to an extent. We don't want to take the permissible things away, because if you take that away, that also drives you to the haram. And taking permissible things away drives you to the haram, just like an excess in permissible things drives you into the haram. If you take those things away, the next thing they crave what is haram. So having that balance whereby you restrict yourself, and one of the beautiful ways of restricting yourself is fasting, because almost vast majority of permissible desires are restricted within fasting. And so a person, if they do a proper Islamic fast, thinking about the heart as well as the body, then that person, inshallah ta'ala, a lot of things they'll learn to control that which is halal, not just that which is haram. And that leads a person to being far less likely to go across the boundary into sin. And I mean, some of the scholars said, we're talking about love of the dunya, and some of them said, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ, that the core of every sin is loving the dunya. And excessive, again, I love, a nice, enjoyable afternoon somewhere, doing something permissible, maybe as an activity with the intention of coming close to Allah, with the intention of giving myself a break, or with the intention of something that's good for my health. That's beautiful. But too much of something, ultimately, it's going to push you to the stage where the only thing beyond that is the haram. And desires lead to more desires. So restricting yourself is not a bad thing.
Early in the podcast, you spoke about zuhd. You spoke about the solution being to belittle the dunya, and you gave some quotes from some of the mashayikh about belittling the dunya. I want to talk a little bit more about that, some practical steps potentially about how one can do that.
So the first thing I would say is think about the akhirah. The Prophet ﷺ said, أَكْثِرُوا مِنْ ذِكْرِ هَادِمِ اللَّذَّاتِ. He said, remember the thing that will kill your pleasure. Remember the thing that will destroy your pleasure, and that is death. So when a person visits the graveyard, when a person thinks about death, when they think about the akhirah, suddenly this world doesn't seem as alluring and as interesting and as important. Imagine if you were, la qadar Allahu dhalik, you were given the doctor came to you and said, look, I'm sorry, but you got maybe 3 months left to live. Allah knows when you're going to die. From medical standpoint, you got 3 months left to live. Suddenly your priorities in the dunya change completely. Everything is gone. Sorry, well, I'm not lying to you. I've said to people before, people have contacted me and said to me that I have been given this, terminal prognosis that the doctor said to me, you've got X amount of months left to live. And I'll say to them, without take this the right way, and you've been given a bushra, wallahi. And someone's given you glad tidings, because you've realized the reality of this world, and you've realized what you really need to spend the rest of your time with. Compare that to somebody who's living the life of this world in their nice, house and car and whatever, and they walk onto the road, they get hit by a bus. And it's over for them. They never had a chance to make tawbah. They never had a chance to reorganize their priorities. It ended. Al-maut al-mufajir, sudden death. As to someone who's told you've got, 3 months left to live, and they prepare themselves and they make tawbah and they increase in their prayer and at the end of the day, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ, and your deeds are judged by how you end, not how you start. So I just think remembering death and remembering the temporary nature of this life is one thing that really can make you put the dunya in the right context and perspective. I think the second thing is to spend time with people who don't have it. And to me, this is from the most beneficial of things, especially righteous. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, again, that word, we use it very loosely because nobody knows it except Allah. But good practicing people maybe don't have a lot. Go to the fuqara, spend time with the poor people, wipe over the head of the orphan. Go and spend your time with people who don't have it. Well, you'll come away and the food on your table will not interest you. Really, that's how you feel, and everywhere has. I mean, we in a country is known for being wealthy. Like there's very, very poor people. Subhanallah, very poor people. You just go and you spend some time. You sit with people. Not just to give them sadaqah, not just to come here and give them sadaqah to just make yourself feel better, but actually spend some time with people who don't have it, and people who are zuhd. So the thing that really interests me is some of the people that I know, that I believe them, and Allah knows them better, to be the most zahid people, people who really turn away from the dunya, are actually very wealthy. Some of them, in themselves, they're actually very wealthy. Like the person doesn't care at all. They've got no connection to it. The heart is not there. It's all about, sometimes a brother will call me over and very, extremely wealthy person. I'd be like, I came because I'm thinking of doing sadaqat and I want to know how I can get this food into Gaza, and I'm thinking about what can we do. And there's nobody came to you and said to you like, I'm thinking, should I buy this car, that car? Or I'm thinking about, expanding my house, or I'm thinking about opening. The person is like, the thing that is that keeps them awake at night is how can I give more sadaqat? And I think you might know somebody who can help me give sadaqah, or is there some poor people that need help? Or you spend time with people who have given up on the dunya, and you yourself find yourself thinking about the world in a different way.
Actually, the opposite is also true, isn't it? If you spend time with people who really value the dunya and like to pay for a lot of conveniences and stuff like that, you start thinking like that and valuing that as well.
And you start doing it when you don't have it as well. So you get into the stage of like where that person, for example, will, let's say, I order out 3 meals a day and all that, and then you start thinking, oh, this is really good. I should do this.
You go to somewhere and then you can either park your car for free or you can get the valet to do it. I'll just pay for the valet to do it. And you're like, why am I doing that? But anytime you spend time, like you're saying, because what I'm really trying to ask you is how do you make the dunya less attractive to you, right? I'm based on what you said, just reminded me of something. So with the first time I ever went to Gambia for the Spot Project, it was my first time. I was really newly married, and so I think that was the first time I'd spent time away from my wife. And I came back, and some of the stuff I saw there were things like, I remember at one point the kids were thirsty for water, the orphans, and so we were like, let's get them water. And it's not even that we couldn't get them water, we just couldn't find any. And so we went to this one shack, and they had one large bottle of water, 1.5 litre bottle. And there's a whole classroom full of children who were sat down, like a classroom size amount of children. So you could see maybe like 30, 50 kids. And so embarrassingly, we came back with this one bottle of water, and we gave the water to one of the kids. Like they were all thirsty, so we was like, okay. And we were thinking, okay, we'll just stand there and pass it around. And Sheikh, I was so shocked. We didn't even have to tell them. The first kid took the water and he had a little bit, so that the next kid could take the water. He had a little bit. Next kid, she had a little bit, and they themselves self-regulated and made sure without us needing to tell. And they were thirsty. Like one kid could have finished half of that bottle, but they made sure that each child had it. And so that's what we were seeing, right? And so I came back then to the UK, and this is my first time really seeing poverty to that level, in person. I came back to the UK, and then my wife may Allah bless her, decided to take me out because we hadn't seen each other in such a long time. And so she like booked this really nice restaurant for us to go to, which was very lovely of her to do. And we spoke about it the other day, actually. We were kind of like pondering on it. So she booked this lovely restaurant in central London. On the first day that I came back, we sat down and the waiter was just like, you know, as they do in restaurants, you know, fussing over you and presenting you. And they came and they presented me my food in this really lovely restaurant, and it was like designed, the food was like presented in this beautiful way, and I sat on the table and I started crying, and I made the date night horrible for her, bless her. But I started, it just naturally, because I just said to her, how can I sit here with somebody else presenting food to me and bring it to me and ask me if I want anything, and I had this like drink that was lovely, and I just kept thinking back to that moment when these kids were like sharing water, and I've got like this, like whatever I could want in front of me, and I really struggled to eat it. And now I kind of think to myself, I've lost that like not even wanting that beautiful plate of food, right? Because I'm not around. Maybe I have put myself in environments, or I'm so like busy, and I'm not allowing myself to actually put myself in those spaces again, where you can say the dunya, like you don't become so attracted to it.
Yeah, you have to do it regularly, because we're human beings. We naturally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about al-insan, and human beings in general. يعني وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. يعني we as human beings are people who like to have things nice and easy and beautiful and comfortable. We like to have plenty of wealth, and we like to enjoy ourselves. And that in itself is not something you're ever going to get rid of in yourself. But what you can do is by regularly, like this is different. A lot of us, what we do is, because sadaqat became so easy in these days, we might give sadaqat, but it's just, you just take your phone out and you just go click, click, click. Okay, that's done. Now I can go back to my plate of food. Like, to actually spend some time and actually go and see people and, you know, try to help and try to just, you know, just benefit from that time. Wallahi, sometimes you believe truly that you benefited more from that time than they benefited from you. Even if you gave them a bottle of water, or you gave them money, or you gave them food, like, and you come out believing that you actually benefited more. So you have to give a little time for that on a regular basis. And as well, another thing, you have to take yourself to account. You have to ask yourself about where you stand with regard to the dunya. It's so easy to get trapped. It's so easy to get caught up. And you have to ask yourself about your intentions. You have to ask yourself about what you want from your life. You have to ask yourself about whether you're working for the akhirah or you're working for the dunya. And that is a big part of getting rid of this, like, craving this world, is asking and being honest about yourself, not saying that, relying upon an intention that is there for 10 years time, but like, today, where do I stand with regard to it? And that, subhanAllah, a person, you come across things that you see in yourself, like, for example, how do you treat people who are wealthy and people who are poor? And how do you treat somebody who comes to you to ask for help and he's got nothing he can give you? Like, there's nothing he can benefit you with. There's no money he can give you. There's no status or help, or he doesn't have a job that he can help. There's nothing he can do for you. And a person who comes to you, and that person could take your project or your business or your job to the next level. How do you treat those two people? And how do you treat them the same? Do you treat them based on merit, or you treat them based on what they can do for you? And that's, again, you come across things in your life where you look at them and you think, no, this is wrong. You know, you need to change the way that you are thinking. So taking yourself to account is another one, inshallah.
We spoke about some like big dunya items, things like cars and houses and stuff, but on a more day-to-day granular level, things that, you know, everybody has to deal with, you know, things like clothes and stuff like that. How do you self-regulate? How do you know which decisions to make with those kind of things? Because, you know, on one end, you know, there's one thing we haven't discussed, which I love discussing with you, because I know it's, you know, you speak about this, the idea of izzah and hayba, right? Like, so there is benefit in having fresh, clean clothes. But then when you start going into designer clothes, you know, a lot of us can maybe use the argument, well, it's good to have izzah, it's good to have good clothes, nice clothes or clean clothes. And so then you all of a sudden are spending £100 on a t-shirt. Where is that line? How do you self-regulate in those smaller decisions, even when it comes to the dunya?
So the first thing, again, we're going to start with the idea of keeping away from the haram. So that's got to be the first place you start. And before we start talking about, because sometimes you can talk to an audience about something, about a level of ihsan and a level of coming close to Allah, which is very high, but you don't remind them about the most basic thing, which is az-zuhd fil haram. And a person says that whatever I'm going to do, I'm not going to buy it with haram money. I'm not going to buy something that is haram. So those are my two red lines. That's never going to, whatever I go beyond that, alhamdulillah, I'm not in a bad place. So I'm not going to buy something with haram money or earn haram for the sake of buying something. And I'm not going to buy something that is haram. The tricky part about haram here is the issue of israf, wastage. That's where it gets tricky, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Those who waste their wealth are the brothers of the shayateen, the brothers of shaitan. That's a difficult ayah to deal with, because where does the line come? But some of the things the scholars say here is, I give you two things to think about, because so we don't get into a lecture rather than just a conversation. Two things to think about. The first thing is, what is the benefit in what I'm buying? So, for example, if you say to me, I bought a £100 t-shirt, and the benefit for me is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's better quality. I like the fit better. I feel comfortable in it. It lasts me longer. Maybe I buy a 20, this fast fashion thing. You buy yourself a £20 t-shirt and you buy another one 2 months later and another one 2 months later and another one before you know you spent £100. So if you can show me there's a reasonable benefit, even if it's not absolute, even if it's not like, well, to be honest, I could do it for 80, I could do it for 100. But if someone says like, there's no benefit to that £100 whatsoever, there's not anything at all. Like it's just, I'm spending, that's when you start.
Yeah, it's just like the name brand.
Like
it's ego maybe.
Like, yeah, especially if it's like that, then it doesn't, I'm not saying haram, but I'm saying that it's like, it's something to think about. So sometimes, for example, go back to the car issue, because it's just easy for people to understand. It's like, should I get a new car? And sometimes I think, well, because my old car is constantly breaking down, and it cost me a fortune to keep sending it to the garage again and getting it maintained, maybe I'd actually be better off getting a new car. Like, that's a reasonable way of thinking. I buy something that lasts me a very long time. Yes, I bought let's say, for example, I bought a hoodie for X amount of money. It would cost me £150, or it cost me £200 or whatever. Like, and it lasts me for the whole 5 years. And it's in good condition, and I like the way it looks and the fit of it and everything, and I feel comfortable with it. That's a very reasonable thing if you have the money. So now comes the second point of israf. So the first thing is taqdeer al-manfa'ah. What is the benefit in it? Like, am I really just, like, for example, if I go to a restaurant and get, this tiny bit of food on a plate, it's a massive big plate, tiny bit of food in the middle, and it's really nicely decorated, no doubt, and it costs like 10 times more than the full plate of food, you're definitely feeling like, did I really like benefit from this? It really, like, what did I get out of it? Other than spending money, like, what did I get out of it? That's the first thing. On the second side, there's another way of thinking about it, which is to think about your own personal ability. And a lot of the scholars focus on this. Everyone has a standard of living that is suited to their income and lifestyle. And israf is really where some of the scholars say wastage is where you go beyond your own personal abilities.
So it's like urfi.
Yeah, and it comes down to your own personal abilities. So someone who has millions and buys a car for £100,000 is actually well within their ability and standard of living, and is considered normal for people of that amount of wealth to buy. It's not considered flashy. It's something, or they even buy it as an investment, or there's a lot of different things to think about. But there's reasonable. And then there's just things that are, you look at it like, you took that car and you had it dipped in gold plate. Like, really? What did that benefit you? Like, what did that bring to you? And is that even normal for, like, do people really do that? Like, that can you see where israf is coming from now?
Sure.
So it's coming, first of all, in, is there really a benefit in what you did? And the second thing it's coming in is what is normal for people like you with your personal ability and your amount of wealth. If you could be seen like maybe people of that level of wealth, let's say you're an ultra high net worth individual and people look at you and say, well, this guy's miskeen. You're probably doing right in the sense that even if you're spending what other people consider to be large amounts of money, but say, for example, other people of that level of wealth do this much and you only do a tiny amount, then that is definitely considered in Islam the issue of how much you have. For example, a person who barely has enough money to put food on the table and then goes and gets takeaway, an expensive takeaway. You would say like, that's no good. Like in a person who has middle income and then gets an expensive takeaway. And it's once a month. You see that's very much considered in the issue of wasting money. So for me, sometimes designer clothes, I'm not that much fussed about the name, but like if the quality is good and I think it's going to last me longer, or I like the fit of it, or I find a benefit in it, I find it to actually be more suited to what I want to do, then I don't mind as long as it's within my income. And go back to the hadith, Inna Allaha Jamilun Yuhibbul Jamal. That's exactly the question the Sahabi asked. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, one of us loves to have beautiful clothes and beautiful sandals. And a person wants to look their best." And the Prophet ﷺ simply replied with a principle, Inna Allaha Jamilun Yuhibbul Jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. So really nice to look nice and everything. But you do look at yourself and you ask yourself sometimes, you don't belittle someone because they don't have nice clothes, for example. You don't like look down upon someone because they're not wearing this. I remember something that happened and this like, it just comes into my mind now, but I remember going to a school in the UAE. The school invited me to come. And they said, the problem we have is that, the students in the school are all from very wealthy families. And they're bullying each other over, like, it was a girls' class, and they're bullying each other over whether their dad can afford a certain handbag for them, and like which they bring to school. And they're like, there's a lot of like belittling people. There's a lot of like bullying. There's a lot of like bad feeling. And can you come and give a lecture that will just like change the way these people think? And I actually remember going and do that. It's very like stuck in my mind. I'm thinking, really, we like all the brotherhood and sisterhood of Islam just lost over whether your dad can afford this handbag or not. Like, that's wrong. Like in buying something because you like it, it's functional for you, you like the look of it, it's good for you, and it's within what is your standard of living that is normal for people like you. That doesn't necessarily come under the issue of wastage. So again, it's not having it. We keep coming back to this overriding principle that having the dunya is not wrong. Like if one of these girls owns a really expensive handbag and it's, that's not itself wrong. But it's the issue of craving, and then the issue of looking down on people, and then the issue of wasting something and buying something that you can't afford for no reason other than it gives you a certain status with regard to your peers and things like that. So those are where the issues that Islam looks at. That's where the problem lies.
Ibrahim and Sulaiman, got some questions for you, but before I let them go into it, you came to the episode today, out at the very beginning, you had quite a strong, or it felt like a passionate feeling about something that you've noticed in recent times, right? You said that you've kind of, you got your ear to the ground enough to understand that there's a pattern of behavior and there's a lot of attractiveness to the dunya, and it's a little bit misled. Do you feel like you've been able to express that, like, or like achieve what you wanted to achieve out of like explaining where you think we're going wrong?
I hope so. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes, you think that, it really depends on whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives us the tawfiq for that message to come to people. I mean, for me,
what was it that was paining you though?
So what was really sort of hurting me is seeing these really, really good people who I believe, and Allah knows them better, are really people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and seeing them just getting sucked into this whirlpool of the dunya and not even achieving it in itself, not like they achieved so much in it. Again, just becoming this tama', this craving and hirs for the dunya and desire for it. And then justifying that as being something that is Islamic, or be either, look, it's entrepreneurial spirit, or it's like this is a good way for a student of knowledge to free himself up to be able to study later on, and all those things coming out. And it's not, you don't see just one person, you don't see just one, channel or just one content creator, but you see like this becomes something that brothers are coming to all the time from different backgrounds. A brother comes with a really good job, says, I'm going to quit my job to do nothing really. Another person comes and says that I'm, a talib ilm, and the reason that I'm chasing this dunya is because this is going to help me be a really good student of knowledge in 10 years' time. And the other person says, I'm doing this because I'm going to give sadaqat in 10 years' time. And then the other person says that what I'm doing is I'm showing people that you can have the best of the dunya and the akhirah. But again, not by taking wealthy people and helping them to be righteous, but by taking righteous people and helping them to be wealthy. And that, for me, is where I saw so many people getting attracted by this. And I just felt like so many close friends. And then the people like living off the sadaqat was another thing that came from the same topic and the same area of someone who got caught up in that. And now today, and he lives day by day from, awsakh an-nas, from the filth of the people, yani. And while still having this idea that I'm doing this for a reason, that in 10 years' time, and that just all of that came together, it really has been something that's been for months and months building. And I've been thinking, where can I find a platform where I can share this with people, where I really believe it will reach people. And I think Freshly Ground has a unique audience of people who, there's a lot of, professionals, a lot of people who have done a lot of good in the dunya, a lot of people who are coming back towards their religion. And I just thought, like, if we can share it here, maybe it's a platform where it might resonate with people more, and people might realize and say, what it is, you're right, we can tweak things a little bit, and we can have khayr dunya wal akhirah. You can have the best of this dunya and the akhirah. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. In this, you can have the best of this dunya, the best of the akhirah, and be safe from the hellfire. But you have to break this idea of craving the world and chasing it. And this something I want to quote, and it was in my mind to say it because it's a line of poetry. I've been teaching this poem lately, but the way the poet said it is so good. I just think like this is just a gift from Allah that he said it like this. He said, أراك تحب عرسا ذات خدر أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. He said, I see you in love with a veiled bride. The intelligent people have already divorced her 3 times. He means the dunya. And she's veiled because people keep telling you under the veil there's this beauty, but you haven't seen it yet. But like under this veil, there's this woman, there's no one more beautiful than her. And there's no one better than her. If you just remove the veil, you're going to see she's the best. Like, in everyone who's removed the veil says that she's ugly, and she betrays you, she'll cheat on you, and she'll leave you with nothing. So it comes back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, الكيس من دان نفسه وعمل لما بعد الموت والعاجز من أتبع نفسه هواها وتمنى على الله الأماني. The Prophet ﷺ said the intelligent person is the one who takes himself to account and acts for what is going to come in the next life. And the person who's helpless is the one who allows their soul to follow its desires, and then وَتَمَنَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْأَمَانِي, lives upon wishful thinking. That hadith just summarizes it all, inshallah.
SubhanAllah. We always appreciate you giving us your time, Shaykh, on Freshly Grounded as well, to kind of express these things, and it benefits us more than you know. Hand it over to Ibrahim, inshallah.
Shaykh, I have a question that I guess is something that a lot of us face, whether it's me, whether it's friends I speak to, on the topic that you both have discussed today. Sometimes, whether it's myself or others, feel that, of course, like you said, when you want to find that balance between having the dunya but without being too attached to it, and still focusing on what's really important. Sometimes you feel like the stresses of trying to keep up with the obligations that we have almost divert your attention in that direction. How does one then kind of realign that back to what's really important when they are caught up in trying to pay the bills and trying to make sure they do their obligations and provide and things like that? Like, do you understand that?
Yeah, that is a beautiful question. And it reminds me of a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which really, I think, answers this question. It's a hadith, some of the scholars question the authenticity, but there are many other hadith with similar wordings that are authentic. So it's just a nice way of quoting it. The Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, من جعل الهموم هما واحدا هم آخرته كفاه الله هم دنياه وأخرى ومن تشعبت به الهموم في أمور الدنيا لم يبال الله في أي أوديتها هلك. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and like I said, there's a question over the authenticity, but the same word, similar wordings have come in so many authentic hadith. Whoever makes their worries a single concern, the concern of the akhirah, Allah will take care of his concerns in his dunya and akhirah, in his worries. And whoever allows their worries to be split among the affairs of this world, Allah does not care in which valley he dies. So the meaning of this hadith is that if a person they try always to make their greatest worry the issues of death and the akhirah and the qiyamah. And their other worries are natural things. You're always going to be worried about paying your rent, and you're going to be worried about putting food on the table by the permission of Allah. You're going to be worried about your job, and that's normal. But your greater worry, the thing that really keeps you awake at night, is the akhirah. Then Allah will take care of those worries. Allah will relieve you of all those worries. That you'll be totally relieved of worries about the world, worries about the rent, worries about the kids, about the family, about the job, as long as the akhirah is what really makes you worried more. But as soon as you allow those worries to overcome the worry of the akhirah, so now it becomes like I'm more scared about my job today than I am about dying today, then that is really where things really overtake you, and you lose the ability to find that balance. So for me, what we have to always do is remember, no matter what I'm going through in the dunya, because you can go through stressful times, always what's in my mind is that the thing that scares me the most is standing in front of Allah. I don't know if did that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's like essentially always making sure the priorities are straight.
That's it.
And keeping that in
And
mind.
if it is, you'll be fine. Like, Allah will take care of your dunya. Imagine now, I always think about this hadith, that if the first of you and the last of you, لو أن أولكم وآخركم وجنكم وإنسكم, the jinn and the men, قاموا في صعيد واحد, every one of you stood on a single plane at a single time, from Adam until Allah inherits the earth. And every one of them asked Allah for everything you ever wanted. So like you're standing there asking Allah for everything you've ever dreamed of. And every other human being and every jinni from Adam until the end of this world at the same time, that wouldn't take away from what Allah has except a needle that's dipped into the ocean. Allah can give you everything you want. But what Allah wants from you is وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. Allah wants you to work for the akhirah. And if you do that, Allah will take care of all of your worries in this dunya. And it's normal, right? We're not saying to people they don't worry, but just make the akhirah the thing that is your biggest worry. And then you'll be fine, inshallah. Allah bless you.
Thank you.
Shaykh, I had a question based on contentment. Before I say it, I wanted to say Jazakallah khair, because every time I seem to listen to you is what I need to hear at that time. So may Allah bless you.
Allah bless you too.
So the question is, if somebody, let's just say he's a software developer or any job, he's working for a company, it's 9 to 5 hours, but his pay is very good and he's content with his pay. He can complete his obligations, provide for his family, and he's very content. And he also does his ibadah and goes to the masjid, and he fulfills his obligations on that side as well. However, this individual can make more money working for himself. Let's just say he has an opportunity to work for himself, and he's he has a skill that he's very good at. It's a software developing or something. Is it wrong for him to then chase that, even though he's content and his salary is paying for everything he needs at the moment?
Beautiful. So the way I see this is there's no right or wrong answer in what he does, but there's a right and wrong way of thinking.
Okay.
So what he does, whether he decides to go start his own business or whether he decides to stay there and ask for a raise or whether he decides to take a different job, none of them are actually wrong as an outcome. But what's wrong is a way of thinking. So it's a question of, why am I looking to move from this? Am I looking at this in a way that I'm thinking about my akhirah? Or am I looking in a way that I just want the dunya for the sake of it? So if a person's looking at the akhirah and says, you know what it is, I think this move could, inshallah, without any of these traps of shaitan we've been talking about, without any wishful thinking, that I actually believe this could do me, this could be a good move for me in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. Maybe it could facilitate a hijrah. Maybe it could be something where a person says that I feel that I can get something out of this which would bring me closer to Allah other than just more money. Then I think that in itself, it's the way the person thinks about it. But what the person must do is be very, very honest with himself, because it's so easy to build a narrative like we've been talking about here, to build a narrative where you convince yourself it's for Allah, but it actually isn't. And it's a lot of wishful thinking. Like, for example, a lot of times people come to me and say, this idea of starting your own business. And I say to them, I don't know anyone who started their own business in the first, let's say, 10 years who is less busy than someone who works for a company. Like, generally speaking, usually it's the case that it's very hard. You work extremely hard. So factor that into your decision. And then if by factoring that into your decision, you still believe that the overriding benefit is in doing it, then make istikhara, make shura with people. And the beautiful thing about shura is, istikhara we know, asking Allah. And istikhara, by the way, for the audience, is not asking Allah for a dream. It's asking Allah to change your qadr or make your qadr the best thing for you. That, oh Allah, whatever I choose, just make it work out for me. Yeah. And if it's not the right thing for me, let me choose something different. So istikhara, that's your first insurance policy. Your second is shura. And shura doesn't mean asking a bunch of people their hearts are in the dunya, because those people might all say, oh, you need to leave the job. You could go, you can make so much more money and, you can end up like this. And look at me, I've done it. But asking people who are also going to be critical as well. And people who are going to say to you, no, stay where you are. You're doing fine. And I think if you do that and then you make a decision, there's no one of those two decisions is wrong. It's just the way that you think about it that is right and wrong. And if your intention is something which is pleasing to Allah and it's real, not a fake intention where you've convinced yourself it's for Allah but it isn't. And then on top of that, the way you go about it of istikhara, a broad shura, asking people who really know you and how you are, I think that you'll make the right decision, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay, thank you, Shaykh.
Allah bless you.
All right.
I think we got a question from Kareem. You've met Kareem numerous times, surely?
Of course, I
okay,
have.
Fine, yeah. So Kareem's moved over from Spain now.
Allah bless him.
As well, so you'll be seeing a lot more of him.
Allah bless you all.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhana.
Wa alaykum salam.
My question is, for those in the audience that have listened to what you've said today, and it serves to them as a reminder, not as new information, how do they make sure that they stay on track?
Beautiful. Staying on track. So for me now, staying on track, first and foremost, is about taking yourself to account. And the way that the early generation of Muslims took themselves to account is really amazing. They had a process of before, during, and after. So they always took themselves to account before they do something. They would say, why am I doing this for? Really, why? What is my intention behind this? And they'd be very harsh on themselves, because there are narrations that mention, and from some of the Sahaba and from some of the Tabi'een, that whoever is harsh upon themselves today, Allah will be easy upon them, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And whoever's easy on themselves today, Allah will be harsh upon them, Yawm al-Qiyamah, wal-'iyadhu billah. So this idea of a person saying, you know what it is, I'm going to be a bit rough with myself. What's your intention? Be honest. And really grill yourself on it before you do something. And then once you start doing something, let's say, for example, the issue of the business. Someone says, what's my intention? So he believes he's right and he's made his istikhara and shura and he started it. Then he keeps asking himself, are you still true to it or have you gone off track? All the time. And then after, even at the end of each day, a person sits and says, where do I stand? Like, what have I done today? Am I still on track? And the more you're a bit rough and tough with yourself, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, the better you see the outcome, unless it leads to despair. That's the only time when you say to someone, go easy on yourself, is when you see a person just depressed and they're like, look, I've done everything wrong and there's nothing in front of me except the fire. And then you say to the person, like, go easy on yourself. Allah is akramul akrameen wa arhamur rahimin. And you give them hope and they say, okay, they calm down. But otherwise, generally, being a bit rough on yourself privately is a good thing. And if we take this issue of asking yourself, how often I remember the akhirah, going to the janaiz, going to the graveyard, and then also spending time, we said, spend a little time with the fuqara and the masakeen, and the other points that were mentioned. I think if a person just takes themselves to account, inshallah ta'ala, that person is really going to see a massive change in the way that they think. And for me, just recently, I think the thing that's maybe triggered this whole thing off, apart from seeing things going on, is maybe teaching this poem, Ta'iyat al-Ilbiri, the Ta'iyya of Abi Ishaq al-Ilbiri, where he talks about leaving the dunya and embracing seeking knowledge. And he advises a man called Abu Bakr, who he just sees as just gone the other way. He's gone from seeking knowledge into chasing the dunya. Some of them said it was his son. Some of them said it was his classmate. Some of them said other things. But it really made me just think, just that the how easy it is to fall into this, and then how to keep yourself on track. Yeah, the ayat, the hadith that talk about the world and the reality of it. You remind yourself of them, spend time with people who are not so attached to it, and just take yourself to account on it as much as you can, and be a little rough and tough with yourself, especially when you find yourself in a situation of relative ease, which I think all of us do. And when you see the situation of Muslims around the world, you realize the ease that you're in. And at times, it's like you have that moment with the Faisal, you mentioned with regard to the food, you have that, when you see what Muslims are going through in the world, you have that moment where you feel like, what am I doing here? And that can only be a good thing for you as a person, to feel like that more often. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Shaykh, just before we finish, I wanted to ask you as well. You was talking about teaching, and I know you teach with AMUA, something that benefits the Ummah massively. Allah barak, may Allah reward you and the team
Allah
there.
Bless you.
What's the
Okay, so every time, it's only because Kareem, because he's like, we speak about AMAU all the time, and every time you mention AMAU, you always say that you and A going around.
Oh, the AMAU. So AMAU, sorry.
Allah bless you guys.
What's the latest with it, and what's going on with that over there?
So AMAU is a project that I've been working with now since 2019. So it's definitely been a time recently for reflection. AMAU is an online academy, and I think the beautiful thing is that when we started off, we restarted it off for serious students of knowledge, to facilitate for people who really wanted to study Islam very deeply. And I think the biggest thing that's changed with AMAU is a widening of that mission into trying to be able to sort of spread this knowledge and facilitate it for as many people as possible at every different stage in their Islamic life and growth and development. So whether it's a person who's looking to learn the basics of how to pray, or it's a person who wants to, dive deep into the oceans of knowledge, we kind of hope that AMAU has something for everyone. The Arabic course right now is close to completion, which is a big thing for me. It's been my baby, that I started the idea that I can make learning Arabic with Allah's help easier for people. And we did a freshly grounded podcast on that. I'm sure we did.
Yeah, because you were basically mentioning that you felt like the way that Arabic is taught should be a little bit different, and then you actually took that upon yourself to teach it that way.
And I tried to do it with AMAU Academy.
With the quality of those videos are incredible though, by the way, along work. Like the AMAU gave me access. It's like the different shots you've got of you like going through the book.
Yeah, we have an amazing team. Wallahi, and AMAU's it's not just teachers. It's an absolutely amazing team that works so hard, and they're so driven in delivering that vision and mission of beneficial Islamic content as widely available as possible for as many people as possible. And so that's coming close to completion. So that's really exciting me because we're working on sort of like now going towards having a content library of Arabic that people can just polish their Arabic off with, and targeting different groups of people, looking at what we can do for kids, what can we do for Arabic speakers who are maybe struggling with the language, people who've maybe been born into a family that speak Arabic, but that they're not quite getting the language with which they can understand the Quran and Sunnah. So there's so much to do. So it's very, very busy, and people can check it out. AMU Academy, pretty much everywhere. AMU does a good job of cropping up wherever you are and whatever you're looking at, inshallah.
I have to also say the quality of the content AMU puts out is just impeccable. It's like cinema grade cameras, just like, you know, you can see that the guys kind of behind the scenes obsess over those things, like the lighting and stuff.
Inna Allah kataba al-ihsana ala kulli shay. Allah requires you to try to strive for excellence in everything you do. So if you've got, you know, it's a beautiful topic because you got a cameraman or a videographer or a colorist or whatever, and he's someone who really takes, you know, great pride in doing the best they possibly can. And maybe they say, look, I'm not a teacher, but the best thing I can do is to produce really, really beautiful quality videos for people. And that's a very rewarding thing and something that's very beneficial. So we've been blessed with a really, really great team that does a great job of producing those videos in a very high quality, even though I think there's room, you know, there's room for improvement, definitely, 100%. And that is all about letting everybody strive for excellence in the thing that they're good at. And that's a beautiful thing, you know, to facilitate that.
I know we're kind of coming towards the end of the podcast. I'm conscious of your time as well, but we've touched a lot on one specific topic this entire episode. I'm intrigued to know, just because it's been a while since we've last had you on, being that you're constantly, you know, around people, counselling sessions and things like this, what other kind of themes have come up over the last few years for you that people are dealing with right now a lot, like in terms of struggles, in terms of community issues that you've seen? Okay, there's a bit of a repetitive theme here that we could potentially benefit from.
Oh, there's so many, and I sometimes think that obviously there's, for me, always the ruqya issues are there, because for me, you know, like sometimes people look at me and say to me, "Have you stopped doing ruqya?"
Yeah,
and I say, like, and can a person stop doing ruqya? And is that even possible? Like, even if you tried to leave it, it doesn't leave you.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of people struggling with, you know, the evil eye is huge.
I remember you saying, sorry about this, that a person should, even if they're not struggling or they don't think they're struggling, you should just have a habit of, like, I think you said like 40 minutes a night, every night, doing ruqya on yourself. Do you still stand by that?
I'm not sure about doing it when you don't have a problem.
Okay.
But I think that reading the Quran and asking Allah to cure you and a person doing the adhkar is very, very important.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as for actually doing ruqya, like proper ruqya on yourself, I mean, generally you're looking to see whether you have an issue or not. But I think that the idea of adhkar, the idea of reading the Quran regularly, the idea of making dua, asking Allah to keep you safe, the evil eye is the truth, and it's very, 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 it destroys people's lives. In terms of things people come to outside of ruqya, I think the biggest one that I tend to get are the family issues, to be honest with you. Family is not easy, and it doesn't matter. Even some of them are spousal issues, some of them are issues with kids. I think kids the world is changing very, very fast.
Yeah.
And it's changing in ways that parents really are really, really struggling to cope with. And I don't know, I mean, maybe our parents felt the same, but it feels like time is speeding up. And there's some evidence for that in the hadith, that as we go towards the end of time, that time actually speeds up and things happen much, much, much faster than they did before. And I think the concern that a lot of people have is that they're losing their kids to things that they can't understand. And that can be new forms of social media and engagement and things like that are out there, the way that our kids use technology.
How do you stay on top of that as a dad?
That is a big question. So I think the first thing is that a person has to do is that you have to have, first of all, the Islamic knowledge of what is required from a parent. then you have to have a good relationship with your kids. It's really important that you talk to them. It's really important that you listen to them. It's important that you know that there's certain things you won't understand, but that you have that relationship that whereby not only you can keep an eye on what's going on, but you can also address issues when they come up and things that you're worried about. So having a good relationship is really, really important, and taking the responsibility seriously and realizing that you're going to be asked Yawm al-Qiyamah about what your kids do. And that's a difficult situation, because normally you think about being asked about yourself, but you're going to be asked about the people that were under your authority and the people that you were responsible for. So it's something that's quite scary. So I find a lot of people now, and I find, very sadly, I'm also dealing with a lot of kids who are very have got to a stage where they really don't really believe in Islam anymore.
SubhanAllah.
And I think people don't really talk about how widespread that is. We like to think of Islam as the fastest growing religion in the world. And the reality, we're definitely adding a lot of people to the religion on a very regular basis. Walillahi alhamd. But there's an undercurrent of problems that are happening to kids with what the kids are going through these days and what they face, particularly not only social media, but particularly school as well. I opened another can of worms.
You did, Sheikh. I want to ask you a really direct question, but I'm fearful that you're going to be conscious not to give a direct answer.
No, I thought you were scared of the answer.
No, I'm not scared of the answer. I know your answer, but I think one time somebody asked one of the shuyukh like a question, like he said, like, is it permissible for me to be driving a taxi? And the Sheikh refused to answer because he said, like, I'm scared that if I answer that, I'm going to take a lot of Muslims out of jobs. So from that angle, I think, like, I don't know.
I'm not. Don't worry, you can ask, inshallah.
So do you think that, like, I don't even know how to ask this in a professional. What I want to say is, like, do you think schooling is just finished now? Like,
the short answer, yes, I do. I truly believe that. If there's any way that you cannot send your children to school, if there's any way that you could do that realistically, I believe it's wajib upon you to do it. And
unless it's a Muslim school, maybe?
I'm sorry to say, like, as someone who works with kids from Muslim schools, if there's any way that you cannot send your children to school, if there's any way they could be educated at home or educated in small groups or go to something where, like a tutor, or if there's any means to do that, I personally believe that it's wajib upon you to do it. There might be some good Muslim schools. I can't say the whole world. I don't want to paint the whole world with the same brush, but
generally speaking,
we've got kids going to really good Muslim schools. The problem is not the school. School's amazing. Curriculum's great. The teachers are even good. But what do you do with the rest of the kids in the class? Mm-hmm. Who the kids in the class who are, there's no, test of how much you're practicing Islam, Kids in the class who are coming and saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing drugs, relationships out of marriage, this. And I'm talking about a very young age, very sadly. All kinds of stuff going on in those classrooms. And someone say, well, that's the world. And I understand that argument. You're right. That's, life's hard, get a helmet, I completely understand that. I completely understand that idea of my kids are going to experience that in the world. Why? But my issue is, our job is to protect our children as much as we can. We can't remove every evil from the world, but we protect them to the maximum extent possible. And for me, just school, whether it's curriculum, whether it's, the environment, it rarely produces anything praiseworthy Islamically. But it's a necessity for a lot of people. And I'm very honest about that. I can't say, everyone take your kids out of school tomorrow, because reality is people can't do it. And the reality is the kids may be worse if they did it as well. Because sometimes we might do a lesser evil in order to avoid a greater one. But I believe every parent should be looking at what they could potentially do to get their kids into a better environment. Bearing in mind that school is so formative. How long do you waste in school? Yeah. From the age of 5 years old, 6 years old, until at least the age, let's be honest, now it's almost universally at least 18 years old. That is probably the best 13 years of your life, 10 to 15 years of your life, plus university and whatever else. And it's been taken up by something that is, I mean, a lot of times the curriculum is trying to poison you. If it's not the curriculum trying to poison you, you've got teachers with all kinds of issues. And if it's not that, the environment, the students, and you put your kids through that for the better part of 15 years. And then you want your kids to come out and benefit you when you go into your grave. And it seems to me to be a bit of a strange way of thinking, Annie. To be quite honest.
I love your passion about raising kids. I always benefit from it. Like there's little tidbits that sometimes you say in passing, but I like hang on to them. I remember I was speaking to my wife a few weeks back and I was saying to her that, you know, because I'm a huge believer in the digital world, you know, I'm sure that's no surprise to anybody, and like the advantage of being as computer savvy as you possibly can. And I remember saying to her that, and this was a lesson I took from you, I was like, when the kids get old enough that we're going to have a computer in the house, it'll be a house computer, it'll be in the living room, and it's going to be facing the family. And it's like, if you want to use a computer, you use it in like the hours that like the family's downstairs, and like it's facing the whole room. And, you know, and it's not because like I have, because I don't trust the children, but I don't trust, you know, what's available online and stuff like that. And I think that we even grew up actually with a home computer, right? We didn't necessarily initially have individual computers, but that's because we also were still raised in the era of things being plugged to walls, right? So even our home phone growing up was plugged to the wall. I read a quote actually recently that said, like, when we were growing up, the phones were plugged to the wall, and it says something like our phones were plugged to the wall, and we had. Has anybody seen this thing about phones being plugged to the wall? And now our phones are not plugged to the wall, but our I'm going to find this. But while I find it, the thing I was going to say, about. So, do you have any other like little hacks like that, like making sure that because that is a perfect solution for me. It allows them to still use the computer and benefit from the digital world and learn coding or whatever it is, but equally do it in an environment and a space that is made safe.
So for me, I think it raises an interesting question about how much you monitor your kids' activities. And again, you know, some people feel very passionately about this. Like some of them are like, you know, if I could install a CCTV camera on my kid's head, I would. And others are like, no, you know, you're not setting them up for life. You're basically wrapping them up in cotton wool, and then when they get exposed to real life, they're gonna fall apart. And I actually think the truth is somewhere in between. I think you have to teach your kids muraqabatullah. You have to teach your kids it's Allah is watching you. And as soon as you teach them to be scared of mom and dad watching you, ultimately you lost the battle in the long run. It has to be Allah is watching you. If you catch your kids doing something on the computer that's wrong, it has to be not that I've caught you, but that Allah saw you doing that. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote that down in your account. And you cannot escape that. So that's one thing. But on the other side, you have to tie your camel. And so I believe in what I might like to call cooperative monitoring, whereby I explain to my kids why I'm monitoring what they do and try to get them to kind of buy into it a little bit.
Well, you told me a very scary hadith once. You said to me that a leader who fails in his responsibility, Jannah is made haram for him.
Yeah, subhanAllah. There's the Prophet ﷺ, he said, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ إِثْمًا, it's sufficient for a person as a sin that he causes the ones he's responsible for to be lost. And like, you don't need another sin to go to Jahannam. That's enough for you. If you caused your kids to go astray, or you caused your kids to be lost, and you didn't fulfill your responsibility to them, you don't need another sin. That's enough for you. And that's the hadith like that are very, 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 very scary. So, it's about helping your kids to understand that, while saying to them that, you could do a million things that I don't see. And you can find a million ways around everything. And you can go and buy in 10 seconds, you go buy another phone and, use it behind my back. Allah will write down.
So.
And ultimately, when I stand Yawm al-Qiyamah, that won't be my fault. And I won't be taken into account for that, inshallah ta'ala. So it is a balance. I don't think installing a CCTV camera on your kid's head is a practical way of moving through life.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also think that giving complete freedom and say make your own mistakes, and that for a Muslim doesn't work.
Yeah,
I
some
mean,
parents are a bit too nonchalant.
Yeah, for a Muslim it doesn't work because you're going to be their mistakes are going to be your mistakes.
So,
Yawm al-Qiyamah. So for me as a Muslim, this whole idea of like, let them make their own mistakes, let them like that. Well, that would potentially could be all right if it wasn't for the fact that I'm going to be asked about them Yawm al-Qiyamah. So then that now becomes my responsibility to deal with. But a balance and more towards the idea of muraqabatullah, like realize Allah is watching you even if your mom and dad aren't.
I found the quote. It said that when the phones were tied with wires, people were free. Now the phones are wireless, but the people are tied.
Yeah, wallahi, subhanAllah. It's again, these phones, like subhanAllah, there's so much good in technology.
Are you still phoneless, by the way?
No, actually not, because I think the world has just changed, to be honest with you. And I tell you why. I try to be as phoneless as I can.
Because I said to the brothers today, I said to them that the Shaykh is so funny because like interacting with him is so old school. I said, I've just agreed with him that I'm going to meet him outside the masjid at 9 a.m. And so I'm just going to go there and assume that he's going to be there. Yeah. And you were there.
It's true.
It's kind of nice, like old school.
And I try to avoid it where I can. But what happened is now, the issues of online banking, the issues of like, even the issues of, we talked about like this, the exercise watch or whatever you put on, everything's tied to a phone. So I just try to do is to be as phoneless as possible. Like I can't get away from the fact that online banking is online banking, and I even tried installing it on the iPad for a while because I actually find my iPad is not a temptation for me, which is weird. Whereas I find the phone is. Like it's really strange. I don't know why that is, but I rarely waste time on my iPad. Very rare that I almost use it like exclusively for work and beneficial things, but as much as possible. But the phone is a different thing. So I try to, restrict it. I'm trying to move towards the idea of a dumb phone. The idea of the opposite of a smartphone, but just something that will just do what I need. Because, what can you do when the government sends you a text message, you have to get the code from it, and the bank sends you a message, you have to get the code from it. You can't buy anything. You try and buy something online and the code, you end up in a difficult situation. But I try to minimize it. And one thing I don't like to do is I try, to really restrict phone calls and, just messaging and all of that type of stuff. Again, I'm a big, this idea of like just keep it all on Telegram, and where I have it all organized and I have like folders and I have priorities and all that kind of stuff. And just try to use it as little as possible. Sometimes I have good times and sometimes, I'm not so good.
Now, I've gotten used to it now with you over the last 10 years. I found the hacks and the ways to, like, if Shaykh Tim needs to be found, we can now figure it out.
Well, I never stopped being in the masjid.
Yeah, you just find you in the masjid, like, just I just want to mention one other. So actually, on that point, quickly, I'm never going to let you go at this point, Shaykh. On that point, it's funny because Kareem is like very much like you, right? And he's done this thing where he's made his whole phone black and white. So it just doesn't feel like even attractive to use it. So he just uses it for what it needs to be used for, and then he can put it down. Or like if I sometimes I'll say, I'll be like, Kareem, I sent you this video on a direct message, like check it out. And he has to like go into the web browser and like log in. I'm like, why do you not just have the app? And he watches it in black and white. I'm like, you're ruining the experience, man. Completely off topic. Another thing I benefited from you is that, because you mentioned the masjid, that I'm so passionate about, because since you mentioned it, is this idea of like, don't bother a person in the masjid after salah when they are doing the adhkar. I know that's something you really don't like. It's pet peeve of yours. But like sometimes like it's such a again, I'll use the word again, but it's such a dichotomy because sometimes I'm in the masjid, I'm doing my adhkar, and someone will come and give me salam, and I feel torn like morally, because I'm like, I should respond to this person's salam. Like maybe I'm getting like
you have to respond,
yeah. But then I'm like, how do I like break that adhkar? Do I like start it again after? Or like
it's a big problem. It's actually this is a really nice topic to think about.
By the way, just saying that point, we've got a really good like method outside the masjid where like we'll just all speak to each other outside the masjid after.
Yeah.
But sorry, I butted you.
So I think the first thing is that a person understands there's a fiqh to the salam. There are many times, I think one of the mashayikh mentioned 14 times where you don't give salam to people. Because remember, giving the salam is a sunnah, responding is wajib.
Okay.
So therefore, responding, I don't have a choice. If someone comes in the middle of my adhkar and says, I'm right in the middle of Ayatul Kursi and says, Assalamu alaikum, I have no choice. I have to say wa alaikum salam. It's obligatory upon me. That dhikr of Ayatul Kursi is a sunnah. And now that responding to the salam is wajib. But giving the salam is not wajib. So one thing that drives me mad after Fajr, always after Fajr, we all sat down doing our adhkar. The first person gets up, Salamu alaikum. Stop, wa alaikum salam. 2 seconds later, the second person gets up. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam.
But isn't that fard kifaya? If they say it just to the room.
There's possibly, and you can look at it, and if they say it to the room for some people to respond, like in the moment, the problem is there, right? Everyone's doing their adhkar. Again, the next person stands up, Assalamu alaikum. By this time, I've said Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum maybe a number of times. Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam. Sometimes someone stands up and say, Ikhwani, please, there's nothing good about that salam you've given. It's not recommended, it's not good, it's not praiseworthy, it's just iz'aj. You're just disturbing people from dhikrullah. Like in the fiqh is not there, because everybody thinks the salam is universally good at every time. Worse than that is people who interrupt a private conversation to give salam. That is worse. You know, two people are talking and you come right in the middle of it. Assalamu alaikum. If I could hit his hand the way I would hit it. So I usually scowl at them and say, wa alaikum salam. And then deliberately turn my head away. Like, Akhi, what are you doing? Like, what fiqh is this? Yani, this is not the time for salam. This is not the right time to give salam. I remember a situation I had where a brother came to tell me that his mother passed away. And he came and he was crying. He said, look, my mom passed away and she was far away. She was not in the same country. And he said, I'm going to have to go. And I was like, Akhi, may Allah give you Assalamu alaikum. That drives me crazy. You know, like it is so wrong on so many levels. Shara'an, in fiqh, in every regard, it's just wrong. But it's just out of a love. You know the person's doing it out of a love. You know the person's doing it from the right place. So you just, and then someone else will come in and do it. So very much understand that giving the salam is a sunnah to be done at the right time, which is, you know, salam to the people you know, salam to the people you don't. If you even if a tree takes you out of, even one goes on one side of the tree and you come back and give each other salam. But what you don't do is interrupt someone in something important to give them the salam. Or someone in dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal is reading the Quran to give him salam. Or someone's making dua and he has to stop his dua to return the salam to you. That's not something praiseworthy. So it's just, you know, the adhkar, if you're in the middle of something that can be resumed, it's fine. But in the middle of an ayah, really you have to, you know, start the ayah again, to be honest.
I think there's a really big omission nowadays, or like we're losing something as an ummah, which is like just adab and manners. And some of these, a lot of these manners actually are manners that you can't necessarily find specifically in just like a specific hadith or in an ayah of the Quran, but you learn it from your teachers or you learn it by being around people. Like there's like one that I was thinking about today that I remember one of our teachers taught me, like, and you can't find this anywhere, but you can see the benefit of it. And it's like these character and manners things like what you're saying, right? But I suppose it's meant for parents to teach it to their children, right? These things. And so this one was really interesting because I remember being surprised when I first heard it. And one of our teachers, he was telling us, like, if you can avoid using the bathroom in somebody's house, avoid it. It's not haram. You can use somebody's bathroom. But if you can go to their house with wudu, like, if you know that there's going to be, if you can, it's better. So you can not just put them in a situation where maybe they don't have it ready or like, stuff like that. It's better. That's a manners thing, right? It's very hard to find. I was trying to find the lead with it. It's not one of those ones that exist like that, but it's just like a manners thing. And so it kind of causes, there's a lot of things like that.
So
way.
those things you're supposed to learn from the scholars.
Right.
So the idea is, yes, your parents, but the parents would first of all send their children, so back to the issue of school, they would send them to scholars to teach them manners. The famous narration of Imam Malik, he said, my mother used to tie my turban for me and say, go to Rabi'a, Rabi'a ibn Abi Abdurrahman, I think his name is, rahimahullah ta'ala, and learn manners from him before you learn knowledge. Go and just learn how to behave. Don't learn any hadith. Just go and sit and look at how he behaves. And that's what you learn. Like now, we don't have the family gatherings where people learn adab. The parents don't really know it to teach their children. And you send kids to school which teach them the exact opposite of good manners, generally speaking. I think in all of that, it's very hard to teach things that are good manners. And, just simple things like the salam, like coming to the class. It's another one that drives me mad. In the middle of a class, the teacher's in the middle of speaking. This is actually what got me started. The first time I realized this about the salam, I was in a class in Medina, sitting in the university with one of the mashayikh, was studying, was writing down notes, and a student came late. He opened the door and said, Assalamu alaikum. The teacher put down his notes, and he just really absolutely just told him, you know, he said, what you have done is 2 sins in one go. He said, the first thing is you came late to the class, and the second thing is you disturbed everyone who was studying. Why would you not come in quietly, embarrassed, and sit in the back? Rather than come in, fling open the door, Assalamu alaikum, ruin the topic of the class, the lecture. And then I realized, I thought, wow, subhanallah, is there really times when you shouldn't go in and just shout the salam out? And then I looked and I found 14 places, which some of the scholars mentioned, where it's not recommended to give the salam.
What's an example of another time?
So I think we gave examples of when a person is involved in dhikr, person reading the Quran, when they're involved in a private conversation that you are interrupting class, things like that. Then there's the issues of tahara, like, you know, issues of the bathroom and, you know, in the toilet and things like that. There's more of it, like a lot of places. So a person thinks that you learn this really, you know, if you don't learn it from your parents, you definitely learn it from the ulama, sitting with the scholars and the people of knowledge. And I think that beautiful thing when we see the imam of the masjid take responsibility to teach that to people. We've got an amazing imam for our masjid, the masjid we just met beside. He does such an amazing job of teaching people. If he sees something wrong, say, Khwani, don't do this. My brothers, don't do this. You know, the issue of the phone going off in the salah. Hey, Khwani, please, like you've done you did 2 things wrong. The first thing is that you put music on your phone. And that in itself is haram in of itself. Then the second thing is, you now, when the music is going off in the salah, didn't make any effort to switch it off. And despite the fact that you can move to switch your phone off, because it's a necessary movement in the salah. And you can move, you can go pick your phone up and you can switch it off. Because ultimately this is a necessary movement. Like when the Prophet ﷺ saw, for example, a harmful animal like a scorpion, and he took a stick and, you know, or whatever it was, and smacked it in the middle of the salah.
Okay.
Or opening the door when someone is right next to you, the door is, and you open the door, or taking some steps forward. There are some movements in the salah that are necessary. Now, this music is harming everyone. It's harming 200 people in the masjid that are all suffering because of it. And because of your khushu', you don't want to move to switch your phone off. But there is no khushu' left anyway. No one's got the khushu'. It's all gone. Nobody's got it now. Except the only thing in everyone's head is the music going on your phone. Right. So why would you not take your phone in the least movement possible? So don't you want to keep your phone and go.
I've seen brothers do that, by the way, like in Salah, like they're putting code in, they're like closing apps.
You know, like, and at least to a person with a minimum movement possible, switch it off. If it's not working to switch it off, then take it out and switch it off with the minimum movement possible. And the Shaykh always reminds people about that. And that tarbiyah, you know, that makes a difference to people. Little reminders about manners and behavior, and it makes such a difference. That's what people used to learn from the scholars before they learnt knowledge. But again, if you're just getting it from social media, it's hard, right? You know, if you're only watching like clips and little mini lectures, you kind of miss those personal interactions. Allah knows best.
Shaykhana, jazakallahu khair. God bless you. I'm afraid I've made you lose your voice. So do forgive us, but we benefit so much from your time. We just try and get the most out of it. May Allah honor you and bless you, Shaykh. And jazakallah khair for giving us time. And please always, you know, the door is always open. You know where we are now, our new studio. So we would love to have you here as much as you are willing, as much time as you're willing to give us. And jazakallah khair.
Amazing. Jazakallahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum. It's always a pleasure.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.